Okay, so in this lesson, I'm going to show you some basic construction techniques using a compass and a straight edge, some ruler type, and you'll have access to this right here. I'm going to give you a copy of this, and then there's also going to be an electronic form of this in your important information area in the classroom. Okay, so right here it tells you step by step how to go through what I'm going to show you. So if you have this out, you can kind of follow along, and let me show you how to do all this. So for this one, we're going to look at how do I copy a line segment. So to copy a line segment means it has to be exactly the same length. So what you do is you start with some segment or line over here. Doesn't matter how I do it. Clearly it's not the same length as that one. And I need a place to start. So I'm going to start right there. So this point right there is going to represent that point right there. Okay? So we want to copy this. We can't call it the same thing. We're going to call it something different. So I'm going to call this A prime. So you know that it goes with A. So to copy a segment, it means it has to be the same length. With your compass, what you do is you put this pointer part right on your endpoint A, and then you move this part so that B, it's on B. You make sure that it's on, goes through B. See how I'm making sure it goes through B. Once I have that span correct, just put that right over here, right on the A prime. Put a little mark over here, and that where they crossed, that spot right there is B prime, and this is a copy of that. It is the exact same length. Okay? So how do I copy an angle? So same thing. Now here you see that it kind of has endpoints right here. That's not necessary for the angle. That's just the initial side and the terminal side. This is the angle. I need that to be the exact same measurement. So to copy it, you need to have, again, a starting value, starting place. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to put a dot right there, and I'm just going to draw a line segment out this way to represent this line right here. This will be my vertex. We'll call this B prime. And then C can just be anywhere out here. It doesn't matter where, because that has nothing to do with the actual angle itself. Okay? So what do I need to do now? So you take the compass, you're going to put the point on the vertex. You're going to make a width somewhere, and then you're going to make an arc. The arc has to cut both of the sides, the terminal side and the initial side. Once I have that arc made, don't change your compass width. Come over here and make the same arc. Now you don't know where the terminal side actually is right now, so make it kind of long. Make your arc wide, just to make sure that you get the terminal side involved. Okay? Now the next thing is we have to measure this gap. So in this situation, you put the corner point on the intersection on the terminal side or on the initial side, doesn't matter. And then you're going to measure the gap by trying to line it up. I'm blocking. Just try and line up this width on that corner. So you want it to be lined up. When you think you have it, mark it, make sure it goes to the point you want. If not, readjust. So I have a mark here, and I've measured out that distance there. Then pick this up. I can go from over here too and measure that gap. Where they intersect, that is the point A prime. Try and be as precise as you can for accuracy purposes. Once I have that dot there, then I can connect B prime with that dot. And this point over here you can call A prime. And so then I have a copy of that angle. How do I bisect? Well, bisect means to cut into half. Okay, so I got to find out where that halfway point is over here. Okay, to bisect it. So what you want to do in this segment is you need to have the gap. Put your pointer on one endpoint and have a gap more than halfway. It has to be more than halfway. Don't go beyond the arc itself. Keep it in there, more than halfway. When you think you have it, you're going to put an arc above and below. Some people do a whole arc, half arc, like so, like a half circle. But you got to go like more than halfway here. And then pick this up and do the exact same arc from the other endpoint. When you have it, you're going to connect here and you connect down here. It's hard to show you guys in this video. So you should have an arc above and below. Okay? And when you have that, where they crossed, draw a line. I mean, I don't have to draw a line. I can just put a little mark here, and that's bisecting it. But I'll draw this line so you can see it. And I have bisected this. That means this piece and this piece are identical in length. This would be the midpoint between A and B. But believe it, more than that, this right here is what's called, it's not just a bisector of a segment, it's called a perpendicular. Bisector, because not only that, but it's also a 90-degree angle here. So those two segments will be perpendicular. How do I bisect an angle? How do I take this and draw a segment in between, knowing that the two angles will be equal in measure? Now, just like in copying an angle, we got to start with our initial arc. So put the pointer on the vertex and make an arc connecting the two sides of the angle. Okay? You can change the gap or you can leave the gap. It doesn't matter. Okay? And so what you do now is you take this and you're going to make an arc out in front. Like that. And without changing the gap, do the same thing from this point right here. And you'll see that you'll have little crosshairs out here where they intersected from that point to the vertex is the ray that bisects this angle. So now I know that this angle and this angle are congruent. Okay. All right, what do we have here? Draw a line that is perpendicular to line L and goes through point P. So I have two of them here, so an A and a B. All right. So for this one, I need to go through this point. So I have to make sure I go through this point, and it has to be perpendicular to this line. So in this case, what you do is you put the point on the point. You want to make sure you're above the line, and you're going to make an arc cutting the line in two spots. So you have to cut the line in two spots, just like that. So you can see. See? And then what that does is it gives you that location that you need so that you can do the perpendicular. Okay? Like we did for perpendicular bisector. So more than halfway. Okay? You put an arc down below. Put an arc up above to go through the point P. Do the same thing on this side over here. Line it up. Make an arc above. Oops, moved it. So you make an arc up here, make an arc down here. It should go through point P. And so then I can draw this. And what I have is I have a line that is perpendicular to the line L, and it goes through point P. Okay. This one is just a variation of the same thing. Okay. So now P is on the line itself. You just do the same thing. You need to make an arc. You got to cut the line. Usually just make an arc. So it hits the line twice. That gives you the two endpoints that you can then go through and find the perpendicular. So I change the spacing just a bit to get arcs up here and an arc down here. And then do the same thing from the other side. Arc up here, arc down here. So I should have an arc up here and an arc up there and there. And then when I draw the connection line between those, it'll go through P. It'll go through P, and it'll be perpendicular to that line. Okay? So this one, I need to draw a line that goes through the point Q, but it's parallel. Now parallel means, they never touch. So this one's a little bit more tricky. It's going to require copying of an angle. But to do this, I have to draw just any line. It doesn't matter which way I do it. Just any line that goes through Q, usually at an angle like this, because we're going to have to copy an angle to make this happen. So I'm going to draw this arbitrary line. You can draw it lightly if you don't want it dark. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this angle off of this. So since this line segment is going to be for both parts here, this point right here is going to be the vertex of the angle, and this will be the vertex of the new one. We're just going to do a copy and angle that I did before. So to copy an angle, we need an arc. You make an arc that cuts both lines, and then come up here and make the same arc. Like so. So remember, now we need to do the gap. So I come over here and I measure the gap. Accuracy is key here. Try and be as accurate as you can. I think I'm pretty accurate there. So once I have the gap measured, then I can come over here and kind of measure the gap over here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a point right there and that point right there. And I can connect those. Make sure to line everything up nice. And I can draw it. And then this line right here is going to be parallel to this line right here. Okay, so those are the basic constructions. Again, you can watch this video. You can also look at the handout that shows you how to do all of these things. And we will do more interesting ones later on in class.